It's funny how the most humiliating moment of your teenage years doesn't come from failing a math test or striking out at baseball. It comes from watching the boy you can't stop thinking about bow under a spotlight, while the entire auditorium worships him, and you're the only one silently wishing he'd trip. Not because you hate him. No. Because you want him so badly it feels like hate. I never wanted to step foot in the school auditorium that day. But fate, or maybe just my lousy schedule, forced me into the theater elective. And that's where I first saw him, Adrian Carter. The name alone carried weight at Lincoln High. He was tall, his presence effortless, the kind of boy teachers adored and students envied. His laughter traveled through the halls like it owned the place. And when he performed, it was like gravity bent toward him. I wasn't exaggerating when I thought he could have been on Broadway, even at 17. And then there was Ethan Hale. 17. Sarcastic, invisible, and too busy surviving the cruelty of high school to dream of applause. My world was small. Get in, get out, keep my head down. I wasn't made for the spotlight. I wasn't made for people like Adrian. But the world, in all its twisted humor, decided to put us in the same room. When Ms. Kendrick, the theater teacher, announced auditions for the spring play, Adrian didn't just audition. He owned the stage. He delivered Shakespeare like it was his birthright. The girls swooned. The guys rolled their eyes. And I tried to convince myself I didn't care. Except I did. I cared too much. So when she called my name next, the blood drained from my face. I wasn't supposed to audition. I just wanted an easy grade, sweeping floors or painting sets. But apparently, theater at Lincoln wasn't a spectator sport. I stumbled onto the stage, heart hammering, palms clammy. I mumbled my lines like they were foreign words, earning snickers from the back row. And then I made the mistake of looking at him, Adrian, leaning forward, watching me with this half-smile that was either pity or curiosity. My throat closed up. My humiliation was complete. But instead of letting me crawl off stage, Ms. Kendrick smiled like she'd seen something worth saving. Ethan, you're in. Supporting role. The class laughed. I wanted the floor to swallow me whole. And Adrian, he clapped, just once, slow and deliberate, like he knew exactly how to get under my skin. That was the beginning. The weeks that followed felt like torture. Rehearsals meant standing too close to him, hearing his voice rap around lines of love and tragedy, watching his every move until my chest ached. Adrian was perfect, and I hated him for it. Or maybe I hated myself for wanting him. He never made it easy, either. While I tried to stay invisible, he had this maddening way of pulling me out. He'd tease me in front of everyone, challenge me to read with more passion, toss casual touches on my shoulder that lingered a second too long. The others thought it was just Adrian being Adrian. I wasn't so sure. One rehearsal, we were practicing a scene where his character confesses love to mine. I expected him to phone it in, to deliver the lines with that rehearsed charm he carried everywhere. But when his eyes locked on mine, something shifted. His voice softened, his gaze dug deep, and for a split second, I believed him. My heart stuttered, my face burned, and I forgot the next line. The auditorium erupted in laughter. But Adrian didn't laugh. He just smirked, leaning closer, whispering where only I could hear, scared. Hale. I wanted to punch him. I wanted to kiss him. I did neither. The thing about secrets is they eat you alive. I'd spent years hiding behind sarcasm, pretending I didn't care about anyone or anything. But Adrian saw through me. He looked at me like he knew the truth, like he could strip away every layer until I was bare and trembling. One night, after a particularly brutal rehearsal, I stayed behind to pack up. The theater was empty, the silence heavy. And then I heard footsteps. Still here. It was him. Of course it was him. Adrian. Leaning against the doorway, hair damp with sweat, eyes brighter than the stage lights. I could ask you the same thing, I muttered, stuffing scripts into my bag. He walked closer, each step deliberate, until the space between us shrank. You were good tonight. I barked out a laugh. Yeah, right. I forgot half my lines. But the other half. His voice dropped. Sincere. You made me believe them. I froze, staring at him. He wasn't teasing this time. He wasn't mocking me. He was just honest. And that was scarier than anything. I turned away, mumbling, "Don't mess with me, Carter." But he didn't leave. He closed the distance, his hand brushing mine as he reached for the same script. The touch was brief, accidental maybe, but it sent a shock through me that I couldn't ignore. Our eyes met. The air thickened. For a heartbeat, felt like the world tilted. Like maybe, just maybe, he wanted this too. But before I could say anything, he pulled back, his mask slipping back into place. "See you tomorrow, Hale." And just like that, he was gone. I lay awake that night, replaying every second. The look in his eyes, the warmth of his hand, the way his voice sounded when he wasn't performing. I hated myself for hoping, because hope was dangerous. High school wasn't kind to boys like me. The whispers, the stares, the unspoken rules of masculinity, it was a cage I couldn't break free from. I'd spent years building walls, and Adrian was tearing them down with a single smile. But the cruelest part, I wasn't sure if he meant it. Adrian Carter, the golden boy, could have anyone he wanted. Why would he choose me? And yet, something about the way he lingered, the way he watched me when he thought I wasn't looking, told me this wasn't just in my head. The turning point came 2 weeks later. We were rehearsing the climax, a scene where his character and mine finally collide in raw confession. The stage was dim, the auditorium empty except for Ms. Kendrick, scribbling notes in the corner. Adrian stood inches from me, his chest rising and falling, his voice trembling with rehearsed desperation. "I can't fight this anymore," he said, eyes locked on mine. "I love you." It was just a line, just a play. But when he reached out, fingers brushing my jaw, I forgot where fiction ended and reality began. My breath caught, my heart raced, and before I could stop myself, I whispered back, not as my character, but as me. "Then prove it." His eyes widened, just slightly. His hand lingered, and for a terrifying, exhilarating second, I thought he might actually do it, close the gap, shatter every rule, and kiss me right there on stage. But then Ms. Kendrick clapped her hands. "Brilliant. Keep that energy." The moment broke. Adrian stepped back, mask firmly in place, leaving me gasping in the wreckage of what almost was. I knew then I was in too deep. That night, as I walked home under the cold streetlights, I realized something. Adrian Carter might be the star of the stage, but offstage, he was just a boy, conflicted, reckless, searching. And maybe, just maybe, I was the role he wasn't ready to play. But damn it, I wanted him to. That's how it all began, the war between who I was and who I wanted to be. Between the boy who hid in shadows and the boy who burned in the light of Adrian Carter. And I had no idea just how much it would cost me. The strange how quickly a stage can turn into a battlefield. By the time the second month of rehearsals rolled around, My role in the play wasn't just about lines and blocking, it was survival. Every scene with Adrian felt like a knife fight where neither of us wanted to admit we were bleeding. I told myself I hated him. That was safer. Hate was armor. Love was a target painted on my back. But even as I muttered snarky comments under my breath, even as I rolled my eyes at his theatrics, my body betrayed me. My pulse sped up when he walked into the room. My gaze drifted to him when I thought no one would notice. And he noticed. He always noticed. One Wednesday afternoon, we were practicing alone in the theater. The rest of the cast had left early. And Ms. Kendrick had disappeared to take a phone call. It was just us. The echo of our voices bouncing off empty seats. The scene demanded vulnerability, his character begging for forgiveness. Mine resisting until finally breaking. I thought I could fake it, that I could hide behind sarcasm like always. But Adrian didn't let me. He stepped close. Too close. His voice dropping lower. Why do you always push me away? The line wasn't written like that. He was improvising. I stiffened, stammering out the scripted response. But he didn't stop. His hand hovered near mine, his eyes searching me like he was peeling layers I didn't even know I had. Say it, he whispered, completely off script now. Say you don't feel anything. My throat went dry. I should have walked away. I should have told him to quit messing around. Instead, I whispered back, you wouldn't believe me if I did. For a heartbeat, silence swallowed the stage. The words hung there, heavy, dangerous. Then footsteps echoed down the hall. And Ms. Kendrick's voice called out, breaking whatever spell we'd woven. Adrian stepped back, smirking like nothing had happened. But his eyes betrayed him. By the next week, the rumors had started. Not about Usnit yet, but about Adrian. He'd turned down Madison Blake, the cheer captain, when she'd asked him to winter formal. That alone was enough to send shockwaves through the school. Madison didn't get rejected. Ever. The hallways buzzed with speculation. Maybe he was already taken. Maybe he was playing hard to get. No one dared suggest the truth. Not out loud. Not in Lincoln, Nebraska, where masculinity was a cage and the word gay was still whispered like a curse. But I heard the whispers. And every time someone looked at him, then glanced at me, my stomach twisted. The breaking point came at rehearsal the following Friday. We were running the confession scene again. The one that had nearly shattered me last time. This time, Adrian didn't just act the part. He lived it. His voice cracked on the word love. His hands trembled when they reached for me. And when his eyes locked on mine, it was no longer a performance. I forgot the script entirely. All I could do was stare, breathless, as he whispered, I don't care what they think. I just need you. The auditorium fell away. It was just us. Just him. Just the truth he wasn't supposed to say. And then, cut. Ms. Kendrick clapped. Oblivious. Perfect. That's the raw emotion I want. Keep it up. Both of you. The spell broke. Adrian stepped back, laughing it off for the crowd. But I saw Ithis' chest rising too fast, his eyes darting like he'd revealed too much. When rehearsal ended, I tried to bolt. But Adrian caught up with me in the hallway, grabbing my wrist. Ethan, wait. I froze, staring at his hand on me. What do you want, Carter? He hesitated, then leaned in, his voice low. I meant it. My heart slammed against my ribs. Meant what? That scene. Those words. His eyes burned into mine. I wasn't acting. I yanked my wrist free, panic clawing at my throat. Don't mess with me. You don't get to play games with this. It's not a game. He stepped closer, desperate now. I can't stop thinking about you. The words hit me like a punch, because they were the same words I'd been choking on for weeks. But before I could answer, before I could even breathe, a group of students rounded the corner. Adrian stepped back instantly, mask sliding back into place, leaving me standing there with my world spinning. That night, couldn't sleep. I kept hearing his voice. I wasn't acting. I can't stop thinking about you. But what did that mean? Did he even know what he wanted? Or was I just some experiment? Some secret thrill he'd discard once the curtain fell? I thought about all the times I'd caught him staring when he thought no one was watching. The way his hand lingered a second too long. The way his smile softened when it was just the two of us. And for the first time, I let myself imagine it. Not just the stolen glances, not just the almost touches, but the possibility of something real. It was reckless. It was dangerous. But God, it was tempting. 2 days later, Adrian gave me no choice. We were in the costume room, searching through racks for outfits, when he cornered me. No one else was around. The air smelled like dust and old velvet. Ethan, he said, his voice low, urgent. Look at me. I shook my head, focusing on a rack of jackets. I don't have time for this. He stepped closer, close enough that I could feel the heat of him. Please. I finally looked Yupan. There it was. Fear. Vulnerability. The golden boy stripped of his armor. I'm scared too, he whispered. But I don't want to hide anymore. Not from you. And then, before I could stop him, before I could even think, he kissed me. It wasn't the dramatic, sweeping kiss of a movie. It was clumsy, rushed, desperate. But it was real. His lips against mine, trembling. His hand gripping my arm like he was afraid I'd disappear. For a second, I froze. Then the dam broke. I kissed him back, every ounce of fear and longing spilling out at once. When we finally pulled apart, breathless, he rested his forehead against mine. Tell me I'm not crazy, he whispered. You're crazy, I said. But so am I. We laughed, shaky and terrified, but it felt like freedom. Of course, freedom has a price. The next week, the stares started. Subtle at first. People noticing how often we were together. How our scenes crackled with something unscripted. Then came the questions. Why hadn't Adrian gone to winter formal? Why did he keep choosing to rehearse with me, even when he didn't have to? And then Madison. She cornered me in the cafeteria. All perfect hair and sharp smiles. Stay away from him, she hissed, her voice low but venomous. Adrian is mine. I laughed bitterly. Pretty sure he doesn't agree. Her eyes narrowed. You think he's serious about you? You're just a phase. A joke. He'll come to his senses. Her words cut deeper than I wanted to admit. Because what if she was right? What if I was just a secret rehearsal in a role he'd never claim publicly? That night, when Adrian texted me meet me at the theater, I almost didn't go. But I did. Because no matter how scared I was, I couldn't stay away. He was waiting on stage, sitting cross-legged under the spotlight. When he saw me, his whole face lit up. Hey, he said softly. You came. I crossed my arms. Defensive. You didn't give me much of a choice. He patted the floor beside him. Sit. I hesitated, then sat. The silence stretched, heavy with things unsaid. Finally, he spoke. I don't care what they think, he said. I don't care about Madison, or the rumors, or any of it. Care about you. I wanted to believe him. God, I wanted to. But the fear was louder. What happens when they find out? I whispered. When it's not just whispers, but headlines. When your perfect image cracks. He looked at me, eyes fierce. Then let it crack. Because I'd rather be real with you than perfect for them. And for the first time, I let myself believe him. The kiss that night wasn't clumsy. It was deliberate, tender, a promise in the dark. But promises are fragile things. And in high school, nothing stays secret for long. Secrets, I learned, have expiration dates. For a while, Adrian and I lived in a fragile bubble, stitched together with late-night rehearsals, whispered jokes no one else understood, and stolen moments in dark hallways. It was dangerous. It was messy, but it was ours. He'd slip me notes folded into his scripts. I'd find excuses to walk him home, pretending it was coincidence when our routes matched. In the theater's shadows, away from the prying eyes of Lincoln High, he was just Adrian messy-haired, laughing too loud, kissing me like he'd been starving for years. But outside that bubble, the world sharpened its knives. It started with a photo. Someone had snapped a picture of us leaving rehearsal together. Shoulders brushing, his smile too wide, my gaze too soft. It hit the school group chat like wildfire. Adrian Carter and Ethan Hale. First, it was whispers, half-jokes in the hallway. Then came the laughter, sharp and cruel. Hey Hale, you his boyfriend now. Someone sneered at lunch. I shoved past them, face burning, while Adrian stood frozen, jaw clenched. He didn't say anything. Not then. Not when it mattered most. And that was when the doubt started to eat me alive. The next rehearsal was brutal. Every line felt like a dare. Every glance like a spotlight exposing what we tried so hard to hide. MS. Kendrick praised our chemistry, oblivious to the storm brewing beneath it. When rehearsal ended, I stormed out, refusing to meet Adrian's eyes. But he followed me, catching me by the lockers. Ethan, wait. I spun on him, anger boiling over. What, Carter? You gonna tell me to ignore it? Pretend it's fine? He flinched. I didn't know what to say. You didn't know what to say. I laughed bitterly. They were tearing me apart, and you just stood there. You think your silence protects you. It doesn't. It just makes me the target. His face crumpled, guilt flashing in his eyes. I'm sorry. I froze. Yeah, I muttered, shoving my books into my bag. Freezing seems to be your specialty. I walked away before he could answer, heart pounding with betrayal. That night, I told myself it was over, that I couldn't do this golden love someone who was too afraid to stand beside me. I stared at my ceiling until dawn, convincing myself I didn't care. But then, the next day, he showed up at my locker. Not quietly, not subtly. He showed up in front of half the school, his golden boy image gleaming as always. And then, in a voice loud enough for everyone to hear, he said, Hale, are you really going to ignore me? The hallway froze. Heads turned. I blinked at him, stunned. What are you doing? I hissed. What I should have done yesterday, he said. His eyes locked on mine, fierce and unflinching. I don't care what they think. Care about you. A ripple ran through the crowd. Gasps. Murmurs. Madison's face pale with fury across the hall. And me. My entire body felt like it was on fire. You're insane. I whispered. Maybe, he said, grinning faintly. But I'm done hiding. That was the moment everything changed. The school wasn't ready for it. Some kids cheered, some sneered, and plenty just watched, hungry for drama. But Adrian didn't flinch. For the first time, he stood beside me, his arm brushing mine like a declaration. And me, I wasn't sure whether to kiss him or kill him. Of course, standing up once didn't erase years of fear. The backlash came fast. Notes stuffed in my locker. Slurs muttered in the hall. A shove against the lockers that left my ribs aching for days. Adrian wanted to fight them all. His temper flared. His fists itched for violence. But I held him back. Over and over. They want a reaction. I told him. Don't give it to them. But inside, I was crumbling. Every glance, every laugh, every shove reminded me how dangerous it was to be seen. And part of me hated him for dragging me into the light. One night, we sat on the roof of his car, parked by the lake outside town. The stars shimmered overhead, cold and indifferent. I'm sorry, he said quietly. For everything. For the way they treat you. It's not your fault, I muttered. But it is. If I'd kept my mouth shut, cut him off. If you'd kept your mouth shut, I'd still be hiding. I don't know what's worse. He turned to me, eyes shining. Hiding isn't living, Ethan. And getting torn apart is. Silence stretched between us, heavy with everything we couldn't fix. Finally, he reached for my hand. Hesitant. Gentle. All I know is, I'd rather face it with you than live a lie without you. My chest ached, torn between fear and the aching pull of him. And in the end, I let him hold my hand. Because even if the world burned, he was worth the flames. The play became our battleground. Every rehearsal, every scene, carried a weight beyond the script. When he whispered, I love you on stage, the audience didn't just hear a line. They heard the truth. By opening night, the entire school knew. The auditorium was packed, the air electric. I stood backstage, heart hammering, convinced I'd collapse before curtain. But then Adrian found me, slipping his hand into mine. Hey, he whispered, steady and sure. We've got this. And for the first time, I believed him. The show began. Scene after scene, the tension built. By the time we reached the climax, the confession, the kissy wasn't Ethan Hale, terrified boy in hiding. I was my character, yes, but I was also me. And when Adrian leaned in, his lips brushing mine under the burning spotlight, the line between fiction and reality shattered. The crowd gasped. Some cheered. Some muttered. But I didn't care. Because in that moment, it wasn't about them. It was about us. After the curtain call, chaos reigned. Some students avoided us. Others congratulated us with awkward smiles. Madison stormed out in tears. But none of it mattered, because Adrian's hand never left mine. Backstage, breathless and sweaty, he grinned at me. Told you we had this. I laughed, shaky but real. You're impossible. Maybe, he said, leaning in close. But you're stuck with me now. And God help me, I wanted to be. Of course, the story didn't end with one kiss on stage. Reality doesn't wrap up neatly with applause. The days that followed were harder than ever. Teachers looked at us differently. Parents whispered. My mom asked cautious questions I didn't know how to answer. But through it all, Adrian stayed. He walked beside me in the halls, sat with me at lunch, dared anyone to challenge us. He made me braver than I ever thought I could be. And maybe, just maybe, I was making him braver too. Because beneath all the confidence, all the charm, Adrian Carter was just a boy learning how to be real. And somehow, I was the one teaching him. But every story has a storm waiting on the horizon. And ours was about to break. The morning after opening night, the world felt different. The performance hadn't just ended with applause, it had ended with a declaration. Adrian and I had kissed under the stage lights, and the audience hadn't seen characters. They'd seen us. At first, I thought maybe, just maybe, we could survive it. The cast congratulated us with nervous smiles. A few whispered bravos, as though they were part of history in the making. But when I walked into school Monday morning, reality crashed down. Locker doors slammed harder. Conversations hushed when I passed. Notes, folded into crude shapes, fell out of my books. Freak. Attention seeker. You'll burn in hell. Adrian got his own brand of backlash. His teammates on the basketball squad cracked jokes too loud to be jokes. His so-called friends told him he was throwing his life away. The golden boy image was tarnishing, and I could see the cracks in his smile. But he never let go of my hand. Not once. That night, over dinner, my mom asked the question I'd been dreading. So, she said, setting down her fork, her eyes heavy with something I couldn't read. You and Adrian, it's true. I froze, the fork halfway to my mouth. What do you mean? Her lips pressed into a thin line. I saw the picture online, and people have been calling, asking. Heat crawled up my neck. It's none of their business. Her gaze softened, but it didn't erase the fear in her voice. It is mine, Ethan, because I need to know if you're safe. If this is who you are. I wanted to snap, to tell her it was my life, my choice. But the words caught in my throat. Yeah, I whispered finally. It's true. Silence filled the kitchen. My little sister looked between us, sensing the storm. My mom closed her eyes for a long moment, then opened them with tears brimming. I just don't want you to get hurt, she said. And for once, I saw it not judgment, not disgust, but fear. Fear for me. Fear of the world. I reached across the table, my hand shaking. I already am. But Adrian makes it worth it. Her breath caught, but she nodded, squeezing my hand. That was the first night I believed maybe, just maybe, family could bend before it broke. Adrian's family wasn't the same. He didn't tell me at first. He kept smiling through rehearsals, kept cracking jokes in the cafeteria, but I saw the shadows under his eyes. Finally, one night, he showed up at my window, climbing in like some reckless Romeo. His face was pale, his hands trembling. My dad knows, he whispered. I sat up in bed, heart dropping. What happened? He laughed bitterly. What didn't happen? He saw the picture. He called me an embarrassment, said I was ruining everything, that I was throwing away my future for a phase. My chest tightened. Adrian, he shook his head, eyes burning. He told me if I didn't cut it offish to pull me out of the play, out of everything. The words hit like a blade, because this wasn't just about me. This was about his dream, the stage he loved, the future he was building. What did you say? I asked, barely breathing. He swallowed hard. I told him no. I told him I wasn't giving you up. Tears burned my eyes before I could stop them. He sat on the edge of my bed, his hands clutching mine like lifelines. I don't know what's going to happen, he admitted. But I know I can't lose you. And for the first time, I realized the cost of love wasn't just mine. It was his too. The days that followed blurred into chaos. His father stopped coming to shows. His mother avoided eye contact when I passed her in the lobby. Rumors turned sharper, fueled by the thrill of scandal. But Adrian didn't back down. He walked into school with me every morning, his chin high even when his shoulders sagged. He laughed too loud, kissed me on the cheek when people stared. He was fire, and I clung to his warmth, even as it burned us both. Yet at night, when the world quieted, I saw the cracks. The way his hands shook. The way his voice caught when he said everything was fine. I wanted to fix it. I wanted to take his pain and swallow it whole. But all I could do was hold him, whispering promises I wasn't sure I could keep. Then came the night of the second performance. The theater buzzed with energy, the audience bigger than ever. Parents, teachers, strangers from town, everyone wanted to see the play that had made headlines. Backstage, Adrian was pale, his hands cold. "He's here," he muttered. "Who?" "My dad." His voice cracked. "Front row." Fear coiled in my gut. "Do you want to back out? We can." "No." He shook his head fiercely. "If I back down now, he wins. And I can't let him win." The curtain rose. Scene after scene, Adrian delivered with fire. His voice thundered. His presence filled the stage. But when the confession came, when he turned to me under the spotlight, I saw it war in his eyes. The line caught in his throat. For a terrifying moment, I thought he'd falter, that fear would win. But then his gaze found mine, and something shifted. He took a breath, and the words came out steady, clear. "I love you." And when his lips pressed against mine, it wasn't just a kiss. It was defiance. It was truth. It was him choosing me, even with his father watching. The audience erupted applause, gasped, even boos. But all I heard was the sound of his heartbeat against mine. After the curtain call, the storm hit. His father was waiting outside the theater, fury carved into his face. He grabbed Adrian's arm, hissing words I couldn't hear. Adrian wrenched free, shouting back, his voice breaking. I froze, helpless, as the argument escalated. Then, without thinking, I stepped forward. "Mr. Carter," I said, my voice shaking but loud enough to carry. "You can hate me all you want, but don't take this out on him." His eyes snapped to me, cold and sharp. "You ruined my son." "No," I whispered. "He saved me." For a long moment, silence stretched. Then Adrian stepped between us, his shoulders squared. "I'm not ruined," he said firmly. "I'm finally me." And just like that, he walked away from his father, away from the life expected of him, straight into the unknown. Straight to me. That night, we sat on the bleachers behind the school, the air cold, our breaths clouding. Adrian's hands shook as he lit a cigarette, something he'd sworn he'd never do. "He's never going to forgive me," he muttered. I took the cigarette from him, crushed it under my shoe. "Then screw him." His laugh was hollow. "It's not that simple." "I know." I touched his face, forcing him to look at me. "But you're not alone. You have me." For the first time that night, his eyes softened. He leaned in, kissing me slow, desperate, like I was the only anchor he had left. And maybe I was. The weeks that followed were brutal. His dad stopped speaking to him entirely. His mom sent clipped texts, avoiding the subject. The school, the whispers didn't stop. But through it all, we clung to each other. We studied together, ate lunch together, held hands in defiance of every stare. And in the quiet moments, when the world faded, we dreamed of leaving Lincoln, of starting over somewhere no one knew us, of a future not dictated by fear. It wasn't easy. It wasn't safe. But it was love. And for the first time, that felt like enough. Still, deep down, I knew the storm hadn't passed. Because love is fire. And fire, sooner or later, consumes everything in its path. The fire didn't burn out. It spread. By the third performance, the play was no longer just art. It was protest, spectacle, scandal. Reporters from the local paper sat in the audience with notepads. Parents argued in the lobby before the curtain rose. And students who once wouldn't have set foot in the theater suddenly came, whispering about the kiss that shook the town. Adrian and I were no longer invisible. We were a war everyone wanted to fight. One morning, I walked into school and found my locker vandalized. Spray paint, crude words dripping down in red. Sinners. My books were gone. My notebooks shredded and scattered across the hallway floor. I froze, stomach twisting. Around me, laughter erupted. Not from everyone, just a cluster of boys leaning against the wall, smirking, proud. Before I could move, Adrian appeared. He didn't hesitate. He marched straight to them, grabbed the nearest one by the collar, and slammed him against the lockers. "You think this is funny?" Adrian snarled, eyes blazing. The boy stammered, pale. But Adrian didn't let go until a teacher intervened, shouting his name. They dragged Adrian to the office, and for a moment, I stood there shaking, my heart split between fury and terror. When he came back later, suspended for 3 days, he only smiled at me. "Worth it," he whispered. But I saw the storm brewing behind his eyes. That night, my phone buzzed with an unknown number. When I answered, a voice hissed into the receiver. "Stay away from him, or we'll make you regret it." Click. The silence that followed was louder than any scream. I didn't tell Adrian. Not right away. Because I knew what he'd do fight back. Harder. Angrier. Until he burned himself out. And I couldn't bear to watch him break. Instead, I carried it like a secret stone in my chest. Then came the letter. A thick envelope. Official looking. Addressed to me. When I opened it, my hands shook. It was from a college I'd secretly applied tone arts program in Chicago. I poured myself into that application. My essays drenched in honesty about the loneliness of growing up. About how theater had saved me. I'd been accepted. I should have screamed, cried, celebrated. But instead, dread pooled in my stomach. Because leaving meant leaving Adrian. That night, I showed him the letter. He read it once, twice, his eyes wide. "Ethan, this is huge. This is everything you wanted." "Yeah," I said softly. "But it's not everything I want." He looked at me, pained. "You're thinking about staying, aren't you?" "I can't just leave you here. Not like this. Not when." He cut me off, voice sharp. "Don't you dare throw this away for me. Don't you dare make me the reason you give up your dream." "But Adrian." "No." He slammed the letter onto the table. His hands trembled. "My whole life, people have decided what I should be. My dad, my coaches, this town. Don't you become one of them. Don't you decide my future for me." His words sliced through me. For a moment, I hated him for being right. The next week was chaos. Protests outside the theater. parents demanding the play be cancelled. Some called it obscene, immoral. Others defended it as brave, necessary. The principal caved. The remaining shows were cancelled. The cast cried. The director raged. And Adrian just laughed, bitter and broken. "They can't stop us," he said one night, his eyes wild. "We'll do it ourselves. We'll perform it anywhere, in the football field, in the park, on the damn street if we have to." I wanted to believe him, but deep down, I was exhausted. Then came the breaking point. We were at a diner, one of the few places that still let us sit without glaring. We sat in a corner booth, holding hands under the table. For a moment, it almost felt normal, until his dad walked in. The air froze. Adrian stiffened, his grip tightening on mine. "Mr. Carter spotted us instantly. He stormed over, eyes burning. "Get up." Adrian didn't move. "No. You think this is a joke? You're throwing your life away for this mistake." His gaze flicked to me, sharp as a blade. "I'm not a mistake," I whispered, though my voice shook. His father sneered. "You're nothing. And if my son had any sense, he'd see it." Adrian shot to his feet, fists clenched. "Don't talk to him like that." The diner went silent. Every eye was on us. "Mr. Carter leaned in, his voice low but venomous. "If you walk out of here with him, don't bother coming home." Adrian's chest rose and fell like he was on fire. For a moment, I thought he'd crumble, that he'd cave to the weight of his father's words. But then he grabbed my hand. "Then I won't." And we walked out together. That night, he showed up at my house with a duffel bag. His eyes were red, his face pale. "He kicked me out," Adrian whispered. My mom froze in the kitchen doorway, her face a mix of shock and worry. But when she saw his trembling hands, she softened. "You can stay here," she said quietly, "for as long as you need." For the first time, Adrian cried, really cried, and I held him until he fell asleep, my heart breaking at how love could cost so much. Living together changed everything. In the quiet mornings, we ate breakfast side by side. In the evenings, we did homework at the kitchen table, his foot brushing mine under the wood. For a fleeting while, it felt like a glimpse of a future we weren't supposed to have yet. But it wasn't easy. He missed his mom, his sister. He missed the home that had shut its doors on him. Some nights, he stared out the window for hours, his face unreadable. And me, I lived with the weight of Chicago pressing on my chest. The acceptance letter sat on my desk, unopened after that first day. Every time I looked at it, my stomach twisted, because no matter what choice I made, it would break something. One night, we lay in bed, the world quiet around us. "Do you ever think about the future?" I asked softly. He chuckled without humor. "All the time. But it feels like every time I picture it, someone's there trying to erase it." I turned toward him. "What if we made our own? What if we just left?" His eyes flicked to mine. "You mean it?" I swallowed. "Yeah. Not someday. Soon." For the first time in weeks, his face lit up. He kissed me like the idea itself was oxygen. And in that moment, I believed it. Believed we could outrun the fire. But the world wasn't done with us yet. The next morning, the principal called us both into the office. Sitting across from him were two men in suits, district officials. "The play," one of them said sharply, "has caused significant disruption. Protests, vandalism, threats. For the safety of the school. You are both suspended from extracurriculars for the remainder of the year. My stomach dropped. What? Adrian's voice was like steel. You're punishing us for existing. The man didn't flinch. We're restoring order. When we walked out of that office, Adrian was shaking with rage. I was shaking with fear. And somewhere deep inside, I knew we couldn't survive here much longer. That night, I opened the acceptance letter again. I traced the words with trembling fingers. Welcome to the program. We are thrilled to invite you. I cried. Not because I was happy. Because I was terrified. Adrian found me like that, curled up on the floor with the letter in my hands. You have to go, he whispered. I looked at him through tears. Not without you. His eyes softened. Then I'll come too. And for the first time, the fire didn't feel like something that would consume us. It felt like something that could light the way forward. Still, I knew the hardest part was yet to come. Because running meant leaving behind everything: family, school, safety, and love, no matter how fierce, doesn't always survive the weight of the world. But looking at him, his hand warm in mine, I realized something. I'd rather burn with him than live safe without him. The plan was reckless, dangerous, maybe even impossible. But when everything else had been stripped away, our stage, our families, our safety, what else did we have but the fire we carried inside us? Adrian and I decided to leave. It started with whispers under blankets. Maps spread across my bed. The glow of my laptop lighting our faces. Chicago was only a few hours away by bus, but it felt like another universe. A place where we could breathe without checking over our shoulders. We calculated costs. Tickets, rent, groceries. It didn't add up. We didn't care. Some nights, Adrian wavered. He'd think of his mom, his little sister, the life he'd abandoned. His eyes would go dark, his voice quiet. What if I ruin everything? What if you end up hating me for dragging you into this? And every time, I take his hand. The only thing I'd hate is losing you. But the town didn't let us leave in peace. The threats escalated. Notes stuffed in my locker. Slurs shouted in the hallway. Once, when we were walking home, a truck slowed beside us. Headlights glaring. Someone threw a beer can that clanged against the pavement at our feet before the truck roared off into the night. Adrian was shaking with fury. I was shaking with fear. That night, I finally confessed about the phone call. The warning I'd gotten weeks earlier. His face went pale. Why didn't you tell me? Because you'd get yourself killed trying to fight them. I whispered. His jaw clenched. His eyes glassy. Ethan, I can't protect you if you keep hiding things from me. I cupped his face in my hands. I don't need you to protect me. I just need you to stay. He kissed me like it was a promise. The night before we were supposed to leave, we made a choice. To perform the play one last time. Not for the school. Not for the town. For us. We gathered the cast in the darkened auditorium. The seats were empty, but the stage still smelled like sweat and dust and possibility. The others agreed, even though they were scared. Some parents had forbidden them from being involved. But that night, none of it mattered. We lit the stage with what we had: desk lamps, phone flashlights, whatever could cut the darkness. And then we began. I'd never felt more alive. Every word from my lips was a blade and a bomb. Every glance at Adrian was both performance and truth. When the final scene came, the kiss, we didn't just act. We gave everything we had left. When it was over, silence filled the auditorium. And then, from the back, the sound of clapping. We turned, startled. It was my mom, Adrian's sister. A handful of classmates who had found out and come anyway. They stood and applauded, tears in their eyes. We weren't alone after all. The next morning, Adrian and I boarded the bus. 2 backpacks, 2 tickets, a horizon waiting. He held my hand as the town rolled past the window. Neither of us looked back. Chicago wasn't easy. The apartment we found was tiny. The kind of place where you could stretch out your arms and almost touch both walls. We worked odd job she waited tables. I stocked shelves while I prepared for classes. Some nights, we collapsed on the floor with cheap takeout, laughing at how little we had. Other nights, we fought about money, about exhaustion, about fear. But no matter how hard it got, we always ended up in each other's arms again. Because in a city of millions, we were still each other's anchor. Months later, I stood on a new stage. My first showcase in Chicago. Adrian sat in the audience, his eyes shining brighter than any spotlight. When the play ended, when the applause roared, I searched the crowd until I found him. And in that moment, I realized something. The fire hadn't destroyed us. It had carried us here. Years passed. We built a life piece by piece, scarred but strong. Adrian pursued theater in ways his small town would never have allowed. I chased my art, my writing, my voice. There were still days when the weight of the past pressed down on us. When a word or a glance reopened old wounds. But we healed together, again and again. One night, long after the world had stopped watching, Adrian whispered against my skin, "You were never my mistake. You were my choice." And I smiled, because I already knew. Looking back, I can't remember the exact moment the fear stopped controlling us. Maybe it was on that bus. Maybe it was on that stage. Maybe it was the first morning we woke up in Chicago. Sunlight streaming through a cracked window. Our future uncertain but ours. All I know is this. He was the star of the school stage. And I was never his downfall. I was the challenge that made him shine brighter. Thank you for listening. If you find it interesting, please like and subscribe to follow the next stories.